What is up, everybody? Glad to have you all joining us again for this week's episode of College Football's Last Call. Watching us on the Jay Stein YouTube channel, listening to us on the Sports Source podcast. However you're here, we appreciate it. Y'all are the best in the business. Open week for UGA, guys, week 8, but not an open week for us. Show must go on. We're here to party. Laurence, I especially appreciate you 2 weeks in a row coming live from off-site in a hotel room with a business trip. You were the man.
Greetings from Scottsdale, Arizona.
What's going on?
Yeah, greetings from Scottsdale, Arizona. The weather's nice. Just a busy month of October. I got my ranch water in hand. We're ready to rock and roll.
Red?
You're in the trust tree here. Did your wife kick you out?
Hey, we're good, man. We're good. She actually told me today that I left her home this week with 3 children, with the third being my mother-in-law. So thoughts and prayers, Lindsay Kessler. I'll be home on Friday.
So your mother-in-law Patty was brought in to help, and she's becoming an extra child.
Well, yeah, mother-in-laws, they're a special breed.
Talk about the current temperature in Scottsdale right now.
So 80 degrees. I haven't seen a single cloud in the sky since I arrived. I went for a nice walk around the property today, hit the gym after the conference stuff was over. It's not a bad place, man. I'm enjoying my time out here. Now, talk to me if I come back here in July sweating my you-know-what off, but October in Arizona is not a bad place to be.
You're a little Dupree's? Larry, 2 things. One, if you record next week from another hotel room, we are going to check Cobb County divorce records to see if something's been filed.
Call Garrett Nail. He'll be able to let you know everything is on the up and up.
2, there's a great place in Scottsdale called Loco Patron. You should check it out. It is a place that ASU co-eds hang out, but if that's your thing, I'd check it out. Make sure you get
listen,
pictures on your phone.
listen, in the background right now, Game 7. This is probably like the 7th and 8th minute of baseball that I've watched since the Braves got bounced. But should the Diamondbacks somehow pull this off, I will load up some photos onto my iPhone and Uber down to Loco Patron and see where the night takes me.
I love a lot of things about Jason Gans, but top of the list, he has never missed a fastball on the inner half. That dude will turn on a fastball in the inner half 10 times out of 10 and knock it out of the park. Tip of the cap to you, my friend. So how's weekend, boys? I mean, no UGA game. Had some more free time. What games y'all watch? What'd you do? How was everything?
Yeah, lovely weekend. I met a few friends, loyal listeners of the show, at Taco Mac to watch a couple of games. And I know we'll jump into them at some point, but the Ohio State Penn State game. By the way, Taco Mac does not a big fan of their food. It's not horrible, but it's just not something. My body's my temple, and it's not something I necessarily like to put in there. But what a great setup for watching football. We were there for a couple of hours. They've got 1,000 TVs, and it was just a nice, relaxing weekend.
Yeah, we had a weekend full of kids sports, running around, celebrated the wife's birthday, went to Hal's, consumed my weight in martinis, and Sunday I was sweating it out a little bit, but it was a fun weekend. We typically like to say the bye week is used to heal the body and take a break, but I'm pretty confident with the 3 of us that did not happen. So the show must go on, as you said earlier.
Yeah, it never works out that way in terms of taking a couple of days off. You got to just keep playing through it. So the Tennessee-Alabama game was what I spent the most time watching. Tale of 2 halves, honestly. It was funny. We're all texting about who we were rooting for. I was rooting for Alabama. I don't know where y'all were, but I was glad to see Alabama win. Tennessee is the top of my don't care for at all list these days. Whiners, they bitch. Got nothing good to say about them. What were y'all's impressions of that game?
So I watched the first half, and then I had to go to kids football, and I was watching the second half, getting updates on my phone. And man, it was a tale of 2 halves for sure. I think that Alabama and Georgia actually have a lot of similarities this year in the way that they play. They come out a little unsteady. This is not either of their most talented teams that they've ever had. But with the athletes that they have and the coaching adjustments they make in the second half, they find ways to win. Alabama came out and just dominated the second half. Milroe played really well. And Tennessee just folded under pressure. In terms of who I was rooting for, honestly, like I always like to see Alabama lose. One more loss kind of takes them out of the picture a little bit. Because I think we can handle business with Tennessee. I just don't think they're that good of a team this year. And quite frankly, they may lose on the road in Lexington this week.
I was rooting for Alabama, not because of the SEC race. They kind of annoyed me last year, and when they beat Tennessee, or when Tennessee beat Alabama in Knoxville, it was like they won Super Bowl one. What's the old expression? Act like you've been there before. Um, Listen, when Georgia plays like Georgia played against Kentucky, neither one of those teams scare me particularly. I agree. I think Alabama is the better team. I kept saying, look, Alabama could go 9-3. They could go 11-1. 11-1 is looking more likely than 9-3. They've got LSU left. They've got Kentucky left. They've got Auburn left, and some cupcake. Tennessee's starting. They've got some tough sledding, as do we. Now we're getting into the meat of our schedule. But yeah, Tennessee now has 2 losses. They'll probably end up with 4. But yeah, look, I'm not sold on Jalen Milroe. I think Joe Milton, we said it last week, they both suck. I think Joe Milton is just terrible. Again, the guy can throw the ball 80 yards, but he can't throw it 10 yards. He puts the same velocity on it 10 yards as he does 80 yards. Milroe he would just make me nervous if he was my quarterback. I'm glad Carson Beck is our quarterback over both of them. Milroe's super athletic. What is he? 6'5", 6'6", runs. The guy's very, very athletic. He does throw a nice deep ball, but he just holds on to the ball way too long. He took, I think, 4 sacks, of which probably 3 of them, he could have gotten rid of the ball. So, look, good win for Alabama. I thought they were going to win by 17. They ended up winning by 14. But yeah, they dominated the second.
Do you think at some point Tennessee is going to turn the keys over to the Hawaiian that they signed last year?
I don't think so, unless Milton gets hurt at this point. I mean, I guess if Georgia would lose to Florida this weekend or lose to Missouri before, maybe, right? Maybe they could squeak into the SEC championship, but they're effectively out of the playoff hunt at this point. So what's the point, right? Maybe, I guess you can play him 4 games and still preserve his red shirt. If they hadn't done it by now, I don't think they're going to do it. And that's probably a good, at some point segue to Texas as well.
Well, before we move on to that, speaking of keys, I don't trust Josh Heupel to make decisions on who gets the keys. He's a clown. His post-game antics and whining and crying about the refs. Again, Kirby would never do that. Heupel and the Vol fan base, they just look silly. In contrast, I'm kind of liking Saban this year. I mean, the whole victory cigar tradition that he's never really dug with. That dude was chiefing down the cigar post-game. I'm not a big cigar guy myself, as y'all know, but that's a kind of a cool tradition that they have. Saban seems to be enjoying what's going on right now. So, again, I was rooting for Bama, glad they won. The game before that, Penn State, Ohio State, just garbage. I'm sorry, just garbage. Ohio State won. Penn State did nothing. Marvin Harrison was the best player in the field. Best player in the country, not named Brock Bowers. That's why they won. But God, everybody loving this Ohio State crap. Like, I don't see it. What about y'all?
I agree with you. I mean, I'm not even going to really go into it. The game was boring as shit. Drew Allard, I've been hearing all season how great Drew Allard was supposed to be. He's the next Josh Allen. Color me unimpressed on Saturday. Marvin Harrison is awesome. If I were them, I think he had 11 catches, but I'd get him 15. That's your key to success right there. Again, I want to see what Penn State does when Michigan comes there. I want to see what Ohio State, but neither one of those teams scare me in a playoff if we're playing to our potential. And I know if.
I would like for you to refer to him as Maserati Marv, as Gus Johnson was wearing our eardrums out with the nicknames. And we buried the lead a little bit because the sucker bet came back and won because everybody was all over Penn State. They were the media darling. Ohio State took care of business. And I think it's more of the fact that Penn State mismanaged that game, was poorly coached. I think Penn State's 2 best players on offense are their running backs. And then every time I look up, Drew Allard is like firing the ball 4 rows deep into the stands. Like it set offensive football back about 69 years. Both defenses are good, and then James Franklin, who I think is an overrated coach at this point. I think Reese Davis called him properly rated because he wins what he should and he loses when he should. But then he comes out and says that these are the two of the best teams in the country from a defensive perspective. But I just wasn't impressed by either team, quite frankly. I think we're all on the same page.
So in 2023, I don't give credit to defense. I say the offenses suck, right? Like we're at this stage where all the offenses have gotten so good and the rules so favor offenses and the play calling is where it's at. Like, I don't think defenses are good. I think those two teams' offenses just suck. I mean, I just really do. I know Ohio State's getting a lot of love this week for now what they call 2 big wins, but again, until they put up good yards and good points and good numbers on a good team, like you said, Red, color me unimpressed, which was kind of the theme of the weekend, right? Like Texas, Oregon, Washington, Florida State, all those teams held on and won, but they all kind of sleptwalked through their games, right? Like no one really put on the gas, blew teams out. It was just kind of a ho-hum game for all those top teams.
Yeah, and look, it goes back to the theme of the season of parity. Oklahoma very well could have lost at home in the Dylan Gabriel Bowl. I watched a good amount of the Florida State Duke game. Duke's quarterback got pulled out, wanted to come back in. Florida State didn't overly impress me. I watched Washington, and Washington was really, really lucky to beat Arizona State. I'm sorry. And I didn't see this part of the game, but apparently there was just a horrendous non-call and a pass interference that I guess they might have even reviewed it. And the Pac-12 refs just said, nope, no call. That really turned the game. I guess somebody threw a pick six afterwards. So none of those teams really impressed me at all. I didn't see anything with Oregon. I do think that there's a lot of parity. I don't think that there is a dominant team right now in college football.
Well, the only team that seems to be going out and kicking ass every weekend is Michigan, right? And I wonder if there's a reason for that.
Look at the segue from Big Lair. We put on the stat on the sheet today, like this whole Michigan sign stealing, play call stealing situation. Guys, where there's smoke, there's fire is kind of how I have always kind of lived my life. It's a 2-part thing, right? It's like number one, they're sending people off campus to scout teams they're playing in the year they're playing them, which is a no-no. And then attempting to record signals and signs while they're being played live in games, right? And the allegation is they are sending this staffer, this guy Connor Stallions, buying tickets on StubHub.
Great name.
Going and doing this stuff. So again, this plays into your theory on Jim Harbaugh, right? It's just add one more thing to the list.
Yeah, so I actually read a little bit more tonight about it too. They went back to 2021, and of course, buying it through StubHub and buying it through like SeatGeek, you could track it, and you have these electronic tickets. So, for instance, Georgia would know when a ticket 69420 gets scanned to go in the door, and then they could trace it to the seat, and then they could go back through film and see if you're actually sitting there. It reminds me of Curb Your Enthusiasm episode where they went to the Dodgers game and some guy in real life was convicted of murder. It turned out he was there. And so anyway, what they've gotten is this guy was he scouted last season Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama. And they caught him I don't know if they actually said Sanford Stadium, but they caught him scouting all 3 of those games. Ironically, TCU is not on that list. They screwed the pooch on that one.
So a couple things. Normally I would say something like this is like a big nothing burger, but then as you start to follow social media, you see stuff on the sidelines that this Connor Stallions guy is always posted up right next to the defensive coordinator, and he's got a stack of laminated Waffle House menus that actually have, when you zoom in, the opposing team's hand signals on them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And the other part about it, which I find also really funny, is apparently they did this and scouted Georgia before the Orange Bowl a couple of years ago, and we still beat the shit out of them 38-11. So that just goes to show the power of Kirby Smart. My take on this at the end of the day, I think Jim Harbaugh is coaching the Chicago Bears next year. This will be his last year at Michigan. I think he's going to see his way out of Ann Arbor after this is all said and done.
So I just have one question though. Why do they not do what they do in the NFL, where they just put a receiver in the quarterback's ear and you call in signals? I read that testing that in the bowl season this year. But I mean, that's a really easy way to get rid of all this.
I think what's going to be fascinating to watch is how the rest of Michigan's season plays out now that they are kind of under the microscope. They suspended this guy, right, Connor? I mean, so
Michigan
he's gone. It's going to be interesting to see if their games now become closer, whether because the competition's better or because they're not doing this anymore. You know how the spin's going to look one way or the other. So I'm excited about that. But let's go ahead and jump into one thing I was interested to hear y'all's take on. We're a week early, but the first college football playoff is going to come out next Tuesday night. I don't think we'll have another week's recording before then, so we're going to have to assume the way some of these games play out this weekend. Everybody's loving Michigan, right? They're everybody's darling, even though they haven't played anybody. But when y'all see 1 through 4, Laurence, I'm going to let you go first. Who is your prediction how this is going to be looking? And list the team and also their ranking.
Yeah, so I'm going to go and list mine. Then this is through the games played so far to date, right? Not kind of where I think things will project if I predict the future.
I want
this
you
is
to
how I
predict
think
this
the
weekend. I mean, I want you.
Yeah,
to,
this is how I
mean,
think.
we're going a few days ahead.
Yep. After this weekend, I think it'll be Michigan number 1. I think Georgia will be number 2. I think Florida State will be 3, and I think Washington will be 4, and Oklahoma will be on the outside looking in number 5, with Ohio State probably 6.
Gans?
Yeah, so I don't assume anyone's going to lose this weekend, including Georgia. I think Georgia's not in the top 4 when they come out, unless we absolutely beat the shit out of Florida this weekend. I think they want to do everything they can to get Georgia out of that top 4, which I think Kirby would absolutely love. I'm going to be a little contrarian to you, Laurence. I think Ohio State's going to be one. They're going to say those 2, wins are the best 2 wins. Florida State 2, Michigan 3, and Washington 4. Georgia probably 5, and Oklahoma 6. I do not think Georgia's in the top 4 next week, and I think Kirby hopes that they're not in the top 4 next week.
Did Dan Mullins steal Gans's computer? What's going on here?
So this is fascinating.
No, I didn't say that's my opinion. I didn't say that's my opinion. I didn't say that I don't think Georgia deserves to be in there. Look, of course, I would have Georgia 1 if I had a ballot. I think we're starting to get that Alabama feeling where people are getting sick of Georgia. And they're going to say we've got one good win, and if we beat Florida by 14, which we're favored by, they're going to be like, ho hum.
Fascinating that
What's your
all
take,
3 of
Josh?
our lists are going to be wildly different from each other, which I think goes back to that word that you used a minute ago. We've used all week or all year, which is just parity. I mean, I've got Ohio State 1, same thinking as you, Gans. The 2 big wins, call it what you will, they are on paper big wins. I've got Georgia 2. I think Georgia should be number 1. I think they're not going to be for many reasons, one of which I think that they want some clickbait, and ESPN wants some conversation that the 2-time back-to-back, defending champions are not number 1. I've got Michigan at 3 and FSU at 4. So we'll see, but just interesting that all of us have a different kind of look to that.
Yeah, and
same top 6, just different orders, but yeah, I get it.
Yeah, none of it means shit, and I think, like I said, I will reiterate that Kirby would love it.
Yeah, so Gans, I like yours the best because that feeds into the the rat poison and all the no one believes in us type stuff that Kirby can just continue to feed these guys and wash their brains.
Now, if we recorded this Sunday night or Monday night and Georgia, whoops up on the Gators, 31-7, maybe it's a different tune. What do y'all think about that game? I'm interested in Carson Beck going back to Jacksonville. It's his hometown. He can come back, as the quarterback ready to roll. Billy Napier, we've talked about him 1,000 times. One thing, Brandon Adams on his podcast talking about, Napier's just boring as shit. Like, there's nothing to him. He has no oomph. He has nothing to talk about. He brings no juice. And so the Gators kind of take on that persona. Like, I don't even know really much about Florida other than the little things that we've seen about them in the games that they played. There's no real storyline that they bring to the table.
Yeah.
Georgia's a heavy favorite, 2 touchdown plus. They should go and take care of business. This game used to have a whole lot of juice to it, a little less now. Still, super fun game. Always fun to watch. 3:30 CBS. I can't wait. Where y'all's headspace at?
I mean, as you guys know, any weird shit happens in Jacksonville, right? So, my expectation, honestly, is Carson Beck may start a little slow. He's playing in front of the hometown crowd. There's going to be a lot of ankle tat sleeves that the kids are wearing as they walk into the stadium. 50-50 split. It's going to be hype, and I think we may see some nerves out of him like we did at Auburn. He, quite frankly, hasn't had, again, a ton of true road games other than Auburn, and this isn't really, a road game, but it's not in Athens. I think Georgia takes care of business. I think we win probably 30-14, cover the number. The only thing about Florida that I know is the guy, the transfer from Wisconsin, Graham Mertz, has actually been statistically speaking pretty good. Not great, but they don't have a lot of household names like you mentioned, right? I think Ricky Pearsall, the guy who basically wears biker shorts out there, he's a pretty good playmaker. I kind of expect it to be a ho-hum. We're going to just take care of business and leave there with another win, and people be partying at Ruth's Chris on Saturday night.
Yeah, I got 34-20. I got the Dogs. As of production time, it's 14.5, so I got us not covering. I think we're going to come out slow, and for a different reason than we normally come out slow. I think they're probably concerned that Carson's going to press a little bit, and they're going to try to bring them along slow. I think the second half, the better team is going to prevail. I think we'll wear them down in the second half. I hope it's not a game with 5 minutes left. I hope we don't score that late touchdown to cover, but I got 34-20. I think it's going to be a ho-hum, take care of business, move on. Candidly, Missouri scares me more than Florida does at this point. That game's in Athens, so it's a different story. And yes, weird things happen in Actionville, but Missouri's a better team than Florida.
It is funny how the narrative on Georgia's schedule has completely been flipped upside its head with what this next month looks like. I mean, Laurence, you nailed it. Georgia-Florida game, weird shit happens. You can't overlook them. And then you've got 3 really tough games coming up, all ranked opponents. Like you said, Missouri, who'd have thought that'd have been a scary game, but it is. Ole Miss, they're who they are. And then Tennessee in Knoxville scares you. So it's just funny how this next month has taken on a very different look than maybe we perhaps first thought it was going to.
Yeah, what I like about it, though, is, we all are in agreement. We think Georgia comes away unscathed. I think, again, it could be a little bit tighter than I'd like in the first half. Missouri is in Athens. It's going to be a 3:30 game in Athens. Ole Miss is in Athens. It's probably going to be a night game. I watched Ole Miss Auburn this weekend. They did not impress me. I expected more out of my man crush, Lane Kiffin, than what I saw this weekend. Tennessee, again, doesn't impress me. The only thing that scares me is that death trap of a field in Neyland. And I kind of hope they pick up another loss before that, because I just want their fans out of it, because that place can rock a bit. We should win every game. We'll be favored in every game here on out. But yes, the schedule has gotten tougher.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I agree with everything you guys are saying, but just back to the Georgia-Florida game, I would really love to see somebody like a Kendall Milton or Ra Thomas just really step up and put themselves on the map and make a name for themselves and write their names down in the annals of Georgia-Florida history. We need somebody who can step up and be that alpha male to replace Brock Bowers. So I'm excited to see who takes that reign and steps up to win for the Dogs on Saturday.
I'll tell you who it's going to be. One, Marcus Roseby Jackson, the lunch pail guy from Florida, broke his ankle there in 2020. He's coming back for revenge this week, and he's going to put up over 100.
I love it.
Don't think it went unnoticed that you pronounce his name exactly right. I mean, exactly right. I'll go ahead and put my score there. I say 31-21, a little closer of a game than you guys. That's just how I see it play out. The next week's slate of games is kind of uninspiring. The only real big game, is in terms of ranked teams, Oregon versus Utah. Salt Lake City, College game days there. I feel the need to bring that up every week where they decide to go. What does Salt Lake City look like at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning getting prepped for a football game? You guys have any idea?
I think sweet tea. I think a lot of unsweet tea.
They party in Salt Lake City. I think they're going to show out. They never get it. Salt Lake City's transitioned, I'd say, in the past decade, and it's a little foodie city. It's got good bar scene, good music scene. So I think those guys are going to come out. They're going to show out. I don't know what to think about Utah. I actually watched more Utah this season than I thought I would have. What's his name? Cam Rising. It seems like he's out for the season. I don't know. We'll see. Oregon's a 6.5-point favorite on the road at Utah. So, but yeah, I think
Can I ask the next question? Laurence, who do you expect to be the guest picker? Karl Malone or John Stockton?
That's a great question. I would say John Stockton over Karl Malone. I mean, you never know. They could audible and bring in Coach Urban Myers, because he's a Utah coaching alum too. But I do like the Utah coach, Whittington or Willingham. What's his name?
Whittingham.
Yeah, he's a good coach. I like him.
Yeah, I think it'll be tough getting Coach Urban Myers out there, being that he's on the Big Noon Kickoff
with the Fox broadcast.
While we're looking at next week's game, we got a sucker bet lined up. You're on a little bit of a heater. You won one, which is good.
I wouldn't quite call it a heater, but we're trying to get back to 500. I will tell you what my sucker bet pick of the week is, and I 100% hate this pick.
I'll be the judge of that.
So we know that UNC pulled the biggest UNC in the history of UNC and lost to a 1-5 Virginia team last week. They are going on the road to the Flats this week to Georgia Tech, where UNC is favored by 11.5. Georgia Tech has lost at home to Bowling Green. They've lost at home to Boston College. And if you follow the stats, UNC should kick the crap out of Georgia Tech, Brent Key and Georgia Tech. I'm taking the Jackets at home plus 11.5.
Haven't we been down this road before? Gans, haven't we been down this road before?
I told you the games suck. I hate this pick, but I'm rolling with it.
I mean, I'll gladly take the Fighting Tom Ludlums and 11.5 points. I did see. Oh, you know what, Larry? Okay, I don't mean to steal your thunder here, but if I were going to play a sucker bet of the week, right? I think that Tennessee is a 3.5-point favorite at Kentucky. I don't know which way the lines are moving there, but I would have thought Tennessee would be a bigger favorite. So I would have thought Tennessee's the sucker and figured Kentucky would be the play there, plus 3.5 at home at night. But this isn't my spiel. It's all you bet.
It was written down on my card as one of my choices, but when I looked at where the public wagers sit, and granted it is still early in the week, 90% of the bets right now are on UNC, and so I typically go the other way from there.
Right.
But I like where your head's
at. You Brent Key and the Ramblin' Wreck, have yourself a day on Saturday. We got a Jimbo of the week from last week.
Yeah. I'll make this quick. So 3 nominees. One is a guy that we talk about quite often, Jermaine Burton. He's a hell of a player. He's having a really good season. We always knew he's a hell of a player, but for fuck's sakes, pardon my language, when you catch the ball, you don't need to just go off on everyone on every catch. He's not it. Second one, but you're a nominee. Second one is I watched the OU UCF game, and Gus Malzahn just is going to Gus Malzahn when it's time to Gus Malzahn. They score a touchdown with no time left on the clock. They go for 2, and the guy runs the oop-de-oop. They had to go for 2, and he runs the oop-de-oop. He runs a double pass, which they never got off, and they ended up getting sacked. Just the guy can't get out of his own damn way. It's been like that for years. But the winner this week, you really don't need to go into it, is Jim Harbaugh. I mean, how many times in a season can you get into trouble like this? We've already discussed he kills neighborhood cats. He's a serial killer. I agree with you, Laurence. He will not be at Michigan next year, regardless of what happens this season. I think he'll probably be in the NFL, but who knows? Nothing would surprise me with that maniac. But you're the Jimbo of the week, buddy.
Is this the first time he's won the award?
Shocking. I think years past, but I think he's won it in years past, and I have gone off on him being a serial killer before. But yeah, I couldn't give it to anybody else in good conscience this week.
Can I give honorable mention to that jackass Tennessee Volunteer fan that took over Twitter last week, calling for the death of every Georgia football player and every fan, and just completely showing his ass, and just give it to the entire Vol Nation?
I missed that because I'm not on Twitter any longer, but maybe you guys pointed it out. I didn't see it.
So the one thing that I saw about that, Josh, I don't know if it's true, but apparently he was on an episode of Cops at one point. This guy, and UGA went deep in the Lud PI files to find this guy on an episode of Cops, and that guy is a total bonehead. Just he's one of those guys that he makes all fan bases look bad. And he's a total Jimbo. Actually, he's an asshole is what he is. So
he's an asshole. Yeah.
That.
Okay. So with no Georgia game, we discussed last week doing something a little different out of the box, something creative. And so the three of us kind of got together and talked about what would be a fun kind of discussion, and where we landed, which I'll be honest, I had a good time looking this up, was looking at the last 25 years. We've all been, Laurence, you got to Athens 96, Gans, me, you 97. So, roughly 25 years going through and coming up with what is our first team all UGA squad, offense and defense, over the last 25 years. We didn't set kind of what those parameters look like, what the credentials are. Everybody can put their own little spin to it, but let's hear what you guys came up with. If y'all want to paper, rock, scissors to see who goes first, to see who's thunder does or doesn't get stolen, go for it. I'll go last. Y'all decide.
Why don't we just hit position groups and alternate with each position group?
Gans, you start with quarterback because I know where you're gonna go.
Well, I know what you think I'm gonna go. You think I'm gonna say. So before we start this off, right, is the criteria what they accomplished at Georgia, who was the best player at Georgia, who's the best overall football player. So
you do you, boo.
Sure. So you got to go with. I'm just going to go. My three were Stetson, Aaron Murray, and Matthew Stafford, based on those three criteria. But I'll just go Stetson.
So I kind of was all over the place when I started doing this exercise, and I enjoyed it. There were some position groups where I went kind of the not necessarily the best position player, but who accomplished the most. And with quarterback, I also went I went David Green second. I went Aaron Murray third. In terms of that order.
Where did Quincy Carter fall on your list?
So Quincy, I had a separate list I made of like favorite players by position groups, and unfortunately Quincy still didn't even crack that list.
I was dying to go Aaron Murray because, if for no other reason, just to troll the two of y'all, because y'all gave him so much shit, Mr. Empty Calorie Murray, for all those years. I have him written down with an asterisk saying I want to say him, but I'm not. I'm going DJ Shockley. I know that he is not going to be in anybody's top 5, and he only had 1 year. I always liked DJ. I appreciated him sticking out through David Green. If he would have been given 3 or 4 years to start, he'd have broken all the records. But I did like myself some Aaron Murray.
I had Shockley as number 5 on my list.
Yeah, that's probably about right.
He always has a grab bag. But one thing, just point of clarification here on AA Ron Murray, and Laurence and I are in the same boat here. We liked him his senior year. Really, at the SEC championship game, his junior year, 2012, was when we liked him. Before that, it was empty calories. And we actually got brown paper bags made up at one point.
Agreed.
So he will probably be one of the last, if not the last, 4-year starter in college at one university, right? I mean, that's not going to happen again.
Unless NIL money gets so big and you're like a 4th-round draft pick and you're like, well, shit, I'm going to come back for my 4th year because I'll make more money my 4th year in college than I will in Green Bay or wherever. That's the only caveat, but I agree with you.
Aaron, I always loved you. I'm sorry these two bozos over here didn't. All right, running back room. Really, really difficult. I told y'all to pick 2. Again, criteria as you chose. Do what you want to do. Defend it. Laurence, you go first.
Yeah, so I know you said pick 2. I'm giving 3.
I'm going to
make up my rules. Laurence. Fine. I'm going to give 2 and an honorable mention. My 2 are Gurley and Chubb. I think those are no-brainers. The running back room for the past 25 years has been stacked, and I threw an honorable mention to Noshawn. Noshawn, unfortunately, was mismanaged by Mark Richt, and we missed a year of his electricity, but he was amazing to watch when he was on the field.
Cosign.
Laurence, you want 5 next time? Just keep going. I mean, talk about Sony hands. Talk about whoever you want. Like, why?
Yeah, I'm good with Gurley and Chubb, but I probably would have put Noshawn as number 3.
You didn't go Wayshawn Ely and Isaiah Crowell?
Noosa.
So I have Gurley and Noshawn, and I hated not including Chubb, but the memories of Noshawn doing his Soldier Boy and just what he brought to the team. We were out in Arizona that game, and just he was something different. Laurence, you're right. They mismanaged him. We deserved another year of Noshawn. Always liked the guy. All right, wide receiver. I told y'all 2. 2 means 2. Jason, you go.
I said 3 for wide receiver.
Did I say 3?
Yeah.
All right, go 3. Sorry, I'm just throwing off from Laurence not obeying the rules. 3 wide receivers.
I'm gonna throw you guys a little loop here. So AJ Green, number 1, Terrence Edwards, number 2, and 1 Brock Bowers as number 3.
You know he's not a wide
Come
receiver.
at me.
Jason.
Come at me.
You know he's not a wide receiver, Jason.
Trying to
Bullshit.
get cute. Jason's trying to get cute with us.
And
So I agree with that. Other than Brock Bowers isn't a wide receiver, you guys know who my all-time
Right,
favorite
George
Reggie Brown.
Reggie Brown. So Reggie Brown, hey, section 117, the Reggie section. I got to go with my man Reggie. Other than that, I have Hines Ward. I was unsure if he qualified for the time frame, but he was there while I was there. And I have AJ Green.
Where did Fran Tarkenton stack up on your quarterbacks list?
I did not pick Bryce Hunter, Jason.
So I have Hines Ward on my list too. So you are allowed to include him on yours. I love Hines. He's in my top 4 dogs of all time. Y'all know my story with him in Smyrna and Waffle House and all this stuff. I love myself some Hines. I have Terrence Edwards on there too. Great dog. Now I've got Fred Gibson on my top 3. I loved watching that dude play. He came in and just made things happen. So I went Hines, Fred, Terrence. Now, next tight end, I think Gann's trying to game the system a little bit. I don't know if you're trying to do Brock in 2 places or buy yourself an extra tight end, but I gave y'all 1 tight end vote. Brock is the obvious vote. I get it. Where y'all go?
Well, I think Brock's for everybody. So everyone pick one not named Brock. And if I had to pick one not named Brock, I would probably say Randy McMichael.
Yeah. So this is where I went with one of my just favorite all-time dogs who maybe didn't put up great numbers and didn't have a future in the NFL.
I know who he's going to say.
Who'd you got?
Leonard Pope.
Nope. Larry Brown.
Again, more than 25 years, but that's fine.
Love Larry Brown. But, listen, we've had a great run of tight ends too. We had Orson Charles. We had the Big O. My list actually has a lot of recency bias on it, but it's Brock Bowers. He's tight end emeritus. But I'll go Larry Brown as my favorite tight end after that.
Your list has some Larry bias on it. And as we all know, most Larrys are bad Larrys. Good Larrys are exceptions to the rule.
Larry Brown, 1997, Washington Street Tavern. Damn good thing. So I have no problem with your Larry Brown selection. He does fit the bill of being in the time frame. Leonard Pope. I'll go Leonard Pope. Ben Watson, I liked him too. I'll go Leonard Pope. All right. So linemen, gave y'all 3. Didn't differentiate between center, guard, tackle, whatever. We maybe could do 5, but we want to be somewhat cognizant of time. So a lot of different directions to go with 3 offensive linemen. Where y'all go?
I'll kick it off. I drew the line at the year 2000, but if we wanted to go back, I would say 98 would be as far back, and a couple of these things were 97. But with offensive linemen, Andrew Thomas, Roger Jones, and John Stinchcomb.
I went David Andrews, Andrew Thomas, and Jamari Sawyer. What Jamari Sawyer did in that Orange Bowl to Aiden Hutchinson, and it was just awesome. I just think he's a damn good dog all the way around.
I went John Stinchcomb, Gans. He was one of our business school classmates. Always a super good dude. Hell of a player. I went Max Swan Hale just because I loved saying his name, and he was the first massive beast that we got. He was 6'8", 350, and then I went Boss Andrews too. Maybe more for his NFL career than his college career, but he was just such a good kind of spokesman for the university. All right, hell of an offensive unit. Let's do defense. We'll start with safety. What I give y'all 2 safeties to choose?
Yeah.
You want me to go? Do you go first on the last one, Gans? I'll go first here. So this one is interesting because I don't know if because he played both safety and linebacker. I have Thomas Davis as safety, and then my man Lewis Seen. He's a great dude, hell of a nice guy. I think he's a damn good dog too. So those were my 2.
So I have Thomas Davis as well, and he did play both. And Alec Ogletree, who played safety for the Dogs and then linebacker in the NFL. And the honorable mention would be Malachi Starks, even though he's only a year and a half in. The guy's fucking awesome.
It's really funny you said Malachi Starks. I wanted to put him on there, and I was wondering if we could because he's a current player. But he will. If we record this in 10 years from now, he'll be on there. I also have Thomas Davis. How can you not? And I've got You're My Boy Blue, Greg Blue. He was one of the first guys I remember that was just torpedoing himself out of the safety position and making just massive hits. So I go Thomas Davis, Greg Blue. Cornerbacks, I have a feeling we're going to have a unanimous choice for one of these as well. Maybe we shouldn't even include him. Let's see if this one name pops up on both y'all's list.
We could have put him at receiver also. And then my next one, I'm curious to see if any of you guys put this guy down. He was like a signing day surprise, a 2-star recruit out of Orangeburg, South Carolina, who had a hell of a NFL career also, Tim Jennings.
Jennings, good pick. I had Champ and Brandon Boykin, and honorable mention Keely Ringo, who goes down in Georgia history for the pick six to seal the Natty back in Indianapolis.
Okay with that.
Damn, Laurence, I was exactly the same, man. Had Champ, Boykin, and then Ringo. Again, and I guess I threw a third one on there, but how can you not? All right, linebacker. Again, so many to choose from.
How many do you say?
2. If you want a third, I'll give you permission for a third because there's an embarrassment of riches at linebacker.
Yes, there is.
Go ahead, Laurence.
I mean, the two linebackers, it's a no-brainer. It's Nakobe Dean and Roquan Smith. If I had to throw a third in there just for nostalgia purposes, I go Odell Thurman. I thought he was freaking awesome.
Good one. Odell's cousins. We got drunk with him at Clemson one day.
Odell's cousin. I rode down the street on the way to Clemson when we got traffic jam. I hung out with Odell's cousin and took shots of like Goldschlager or something.
So I do agree that Roquan is the no-brainer. I disagree. While I love Nakobe Dean, there is another player that I think was more impactful. And that was a transfer who is on the staff at Georgia currently, one Jarvis Jones. My honorable mention would be Nakobe, Larry Carter, Lorenzo Carter, and Odell. Odell and Greg Blue would not be allowed to play today because they would be kicked out for targeting every single game.
Love the Jarvis Jones selection. He was the first guy with those massive dreadlocks that came out of his helmet, and his play against Florida to win that game. Amazing. I have Boss Bailey in there just because he was so fun to watch back then. The way he would block, kicks and extra points and field goals was just amazing.
I'm surprised you didn't pick Kendrell Bell, Gans.
He was awesome too. Traub loved him.
Defensive linemen, again, some obvious ones here. There's a certain player that I'm hoping I hear out of one of the two of you guys on this chat. I'm not going to say who yet, but again, some obvious ones, but where'd you go D-line?
So who'd you go with, Josh? You haven't gone first in a little bit.
I mean, so I went with the two obvious ones, Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. And then I went Richard Seymour. And then I went another person that I'm not going to say the name yet because I want to see if one of you two say it.
Oh, I'll go. How many? Was it 3 or 4?
3.
I mean, number 1 was David Pollock. I had Pollock first, Jalen Carter second. There's so many more, but one guy I actually put in because his NFL career, Geno Atkins. And then I'd have Jordan Davis and probably Charles Grant on there.
Yeah, so I had Jordan Davis, my number 1. He's one of my favorite all-time Bulldogs. Great dude. Jalen Carter, and I had Pollock and Seymour on my list.
Marcus Stroud.
So the direction that I was looking for you to go, Mr. Gans, was a former dance partner of yours. Who can Veal?
That guy was awesome. I mean, the other one we could have had was our old neighbor, Josh Mallard.
Yeah.
He came and asked us if we knew anything about pigs. He had a pig.
So good. Kicker. When I say kicker, I mean field goal kicker.
Place kicker, right?
Yeah.
Kicker. I got Hot Rod as my number 1, and I had Billy Bennett as my number 2.
I had Hot Rod, and I don't care afterwards.
I got Billy Bennett. That game against Alabama, for those reasons and those reasons alone, I have him up there.
I just love how Billy Bennett would run on the field, swing that leg, and then he'd go line up and just start booming field goals.
So we had a discussion about Hot Rod the other day. Maybe it was with the two of you guys. The amount of money he made in the NFL is kind of low for the amount of time we think that he must have played there. He only made a couple $1 million in the NFL. Punters just don't make what they used to. But he did get a chance. Okay.
He only played 2-3 seasons, and then he got cut from the Bucks this year?
3 or 4, whatever it was. So punter is a funny one because back in the day when we weren't as good as we are now, the running joke was always, insert punter's name was our best player. So I'm interested to see which direction the two of you guys went in terms of the greatest punter of the last 25 years.
I went with Georgia royalty, the prince of the kicking game, Drew Butler.
Not bad. I went with my boy Jake Camarda. Like I said, I got some recency bias. He was awesome. And if the Aussie can do what he did against Tennessee again, like he did last year, he'll quickly climb up the ranks. But there's been some damn good punters in the ranks. We had Gordon Eli Kelso. Had some good ones out there.
That's where I went. I went Gordon Eli Kelso just because I loved his name. Drew Butler's always been a good dude. We've hung with him several times, so I have no problem with that selection. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that our coaches have always spent some time recruiting good punters. I think it's important, and we've got a big list. So I'm sure other people will come up with different names than we did, but I feel like we just did a pretty good job at tatting up the board.
How about a bonus question on the fly? Your favorite assistant coach over the past 25 years?
Got to be Pit Boss for me. I think that he just made up what a assistant coach is supposed to do. I loved his Twitter game. What do you say? Not
Yes,
go
sir.
Dogs. What would he say when he signed somebody?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We talked about him last week. So Pit Boss 2 weeks in a row. Love it.
What do you like?
Not Todd Grantham. I would say, gosh, that's a tough question. I think I got, again, recency bias. I need to go with Todd Monken. I just think he was awesome. He was just very innovative. So I'll pick him. But we have had some clowns filling out the sidelines of the assistant coaches.
Who was our friend Gans? Was it Hines? Ben Kynes? Ben but don't break defense.
Joe Kynes.
We loved that guy back in the day.
Yeah, I'd go with Todd Monken also. I just thought of that one on the fly. But yeah, I would go with Todd Monken as well.
All right, good stuff.
Favorite long snapper?
Artie Gordon.
There you go.
Easy. All right, guys. Went a little longer than usual. Appreciate y'all gifting the listeners a few more minutes. I enjoyed this exercise we just did. I'm sure people will chime in with their thoughts, which is always fun. Laurence, thank you again for hopping in live from the West Coast. Gans, have safe travels to the West Coast tomorrow. All y'all out there listening, appreciate the time and the devotion to the program every week and Georgia Florida week. So, guys, we'll see y'all this weekend. What else is there to say?
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs. Thank you for listening. Keep chopping. Later, everybody.